Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books, and today we're talking about what I've been reading, what I'm going to read next, and some other stuff that I want to talk about because it's the Friday show. This is the end of the week. It's where we kick back together and I talk to you guys about books and sometimes some other stuff. There's going to be quite a bit of other stuff this week, I think, but I'll leave that all to the end so that if you're only here for the books, you can ditch. So let's start out with what I've been reading. So this week I finished New Spring, the prequel novella novel. I think it's a novella for Jordan, but a novel for most. It's longer than this novel, the next novel that I read, and the one that I read before that. So yeah, I read this one, New Spring. My full review for this won't be out for a few days because Monday's review is going to be Calamity, because I skipped that in the order of how I'd read books so that I could get the Once Was Willem review out on release week. But I'll give you my thoughts on this now. I rated this a 4-star. It is it's really well written. So Jordan's great at writing. He's great at writing these characters. I did spend a huge amount of this book wondering why it existed. If I put myself back in the shoes of Robert Jordan, right? So he has not yet been diagnosed with his terminal illness, and he thinks he has 2 books left of The Wheel of Time. I could see why he would want to be starting a new series set in that world. The questions that I have for him, because this was originally intended to be the first of a trilogy, and then the reception to it was incredibly poor, and then he got sick, so nothing ever happened with it. I did like this book, but my biggest question is, like, he as a writer is so original with all of his, like, his world feels like his world. It's not reminiscent of anything else. I feel like you find elements of his stories in other places, but because of how well realised Jordan's worlds are, we don't really get, like, you get stories that maybe feel like The Wheel of Time, but nobody has come close to the scope, I don't think, of The Wheel of Time. You have people like Sanderson, but he's got multiple worlds. He's not really written, he's not written 15 books with the same characters. Anyway, this is straying into what I'm going to discuss in the review, so I'll try and keep it a little bit shorter, because otherwise why would you watch both of these videos? The characters that are in this book are characters from the main series. Characters who've kind of been given short shrift in the main series, despite them being 2 of the best characters, and I think many people put those characters in their, like, top 10 Wheel of Time characters. And I like seeing their backstories. I like seeing how those 2 characters met. I liked seeing a lot of the events in this book, but I kept thinking, like, why these characters? Why this story? And maybe Jordan just had it and wanted to tell it, which is fine. But for me, I was thinking, like, why would you not tell a story set at the time of Lutheran and the 100 Companions? Why would you not tell a story of the next turning of the wheel, or the one before Lutheran? There's a lot of interesting places you can tell stories in the Wheel of Time. You could tell an entirely straight, magicless Aiel war story, and I think it would be excellent. The history of the Wheel of Time, the characters of the Wheel of Time, the world of the Wheel of Time. You don't need to revisit people and do prequels like this. So, like, you can do a prequel, but you can do prequels differently, the video review when it comes out is probably going to be very critical, but not of the writing or the enjoyment of the book, but more like the purpose and the reasoning behind the book. And I just felt like, as I was reading it, I was like, well, we've kind of had this story elsewhere in the Wheel of Time. So one of the characters, the point of view characters in this book is accepted in the White Tower, and we've had that story. We haven't had some elements of that story, but we got a lot of accepted stuff, you know? I feel like maybe we could have had a bit less. Next up, we have the third rule of time travel, which I am barely 30 pages into because I have had a bit of a busy week. I've had a lot of work events and stuff. And I've also been, because it's been so busy, been a bit more tired, which means I can't read as much with a physical copy. I don't have the audio for this one because this is a pre-release review copy. So this is a sci-fi thriller in the vein of Blake Crouch. I do believe a few people that I follow on BookTube are reading this right now. I think that Orbit is very much behind this because I think that they know that it's going to do well. One thing that I thought was quite cool, actually, is this is the first book I've seen with a Blue Sky address on the back, which is super cool. You should follow me on Blue Sky. I'm barely on Twitter. I think I go on Twitter to share my videos and sometimes complain about things. I do still keep up with my Twitter because I've made some really good connections there that I don't really want to lose, because not everyone has moved to Blue Sky, and when they've moved to Blue Sky, they haven't, you don't follow the same people again. Like, I'm following hundreds of people on Twitter and nowhere near that many on Blue Sky. Anyway, so this is a sci-fi techno thriller. Really interesting setup, but that's all I've got at the moment. So the writing style is very good, and I'll give you one thing to Orbit, like big kudos, big props to Orbit. Look how floppy this book is. It is lovely. It flops open. At the middle of the book, it might even stay open on a flopped open page, which is one of my favourite things. Big fan of this book. So far, well, the physical construction of this book. I had actually planned to read a few more chapters today during my lunch break before I recorded this video, because it is a fast read. So I was like, I can read a few chapters, but time has run away with me, and I actually am only just having a lunch break, and it's like 2:30. So, long story short, I've not read much of this. I wish I had read more, and I'm going to hopefully read a load of it over the weekend, which I'm really excited about. If you have been paying attention to the channel, you'll see that on Wednesday, I put up my TBR video. So videos-wise, we'll talk about videos in a minute. Books-wise, for my next book, it'll be something from that TBR list. I am leaning towards Lux by Brandon Sanderson. And then I think after Lux, I will go into Knife of Dreams. And then after Knife of Dreams, I'll go into Mushroom Blues. So that is my tentative plan. A lot of this is because I want to get the shorter books out of the way at the beginning of the month, which is why I'm reading New Spring, Third Rule and Lux. And then I also don't want to have Knife of Dreams back to back with Of Empires and Dust by Ryan Cahill, because they're both 1,000+ page epic fantasy novels, and I think Of Empires and Dust is literally at the limit of what Ryan can get printed, and he said it's like longer than Wind and Truth, so he's not even going to have like the previous Leons and stuff in the printed copies. It's just going to be the novel and nothing else, which is madness, and I'm genuinely excited to read it. It's going to be my first time reading a new Cahill novel since Of War and Ruin. I mean, it's the same for everybody, but I read Of War and Ruin not long after it came out, so I've been on the waiting game with everyone else. And that's definitely going to be a #1 feature on March's. It's already March. April's TBR, because it comes out on the 31st of March, I think. I did actually DM Ryan and ask him for a review copy. If I get one, I may push a couple of books to one side and just read that as soon as I can get it. Thingamajig, Knife of Dreams, I am committed to reading in March, but other things could move. So, what am I reading next? Yep, Lux. Pretty much, I think I'll be reading Lux. I was thinking that I would read Mushroom Blues next, but I'm actually kind of gonna, because this one is, I only have physical, I don't have the ebook, I don't have the audio, because it's not out. I would like to have something that I can audio, so I may end up reading Lux via audio at the same time as this. Lux is audio only as well, so that will be a fun thing. I've not read an audio only book for a while. I did listen to most of New Spring, I think like half-ish. I don't know how much of Knife of Dreams I'm going to listen to, because for like Crossroads of Twilight, I listened to the entire book pretty much, apart from the prologue. But I don't want to, I don't want to lose my like ability to read with my eyes at a reasonable pace. 'Cause I used to read faster than I can listen to an audiobook, and I don't know if I do anymore, because I've actually been doing tons of audiobooking, so maybe that's it. Yeah, so that's what we've read. That's what we're going to read. Videos this week. So this week's videos were the Once Was Willem review, which I hope you guys really enjoyed. I did actually finish Once Was Willem since I've spoken to you, I think. Since I spoke to you last Friday, because I recorded... no, maybe I'd finished it before then. I'm not sure, guys. My brain isn't really braining right now. But Once Was Willem was excellent. That review I thought was really good. MR Carey actually shared it on Twitter, which is very cool. Nobody has watched that review. It has like 30 views. So if you like my stuff, it is spoiler free, so I would read it, and I think it's my favourite book I've read this year, so keep that in mind when you think about whether you should read it or not. Next video, as I said, was the March TBR, so I'll run through this very quickly. We're going to be reading Third Rule of Time Travel, Knife of Dreams, Mushroom Blues, Lux, and was there another one? I feel like I had 5 books on my list. Oh, I'm going to have to go and check. I'm going to have to check, guys. I'm going to have to check. And I'll tell you how I'm going to check. I'm going to go to the YouTube app and I'm going to look at my own thumbnails, because I'm not very good at keeping notes. So, YouTube, and then my latest video is the TBR. It's going to jump straight out of me. Wandering In. The final book is Wandering In, book 2. It's only half of that book because I have already read the first half. But yeah, so Wandering In, book 2 is the final book on the list. I think if any books slip into the next month, in an ideal world, that would be Mushroom Blues, simply because I did already say to viewers that I would read Wandering In Volume 2 in Q1. I said that to you guys as to Wandering In fans, and I would like to keep that promise if possible. So yeah, if anything slips, it'll be Mushroom Blues probably. But I will say now, if I get Of Empires and Dust, that is my favourite fantasy series of all time, and I'll probably be pushing Wandering In to be the first book of April if that happens. Anyway, so I'll basically just be swapping them, because Empires and Dust will be the first book I read in April, if that makes sense. So, where are we when it comes to video stuff? So, next Monday will be the New Spring review? No, Calamity review, which I've already recorded. Then next Wednesday will be the February recap. So that will be everything that I have read in February. And hopefully it's not an embarrassingly small amount of books. I think it's an okay amount. I don't know. Since I've not been planning TBRs, it's been harder to like keep track of how much I'm reading, let alone, if that makes sense. I don't know if it does. Next, after the recap, will be the Friday show again. So that's what you're getting, and that's next week's videos. Let's talk about... Oh, I have one final thing to talk to you about. So, I will try and flash this up on screen somewhere. I'm sat in the middle of this camera today, so it will probably be directly in front of my face. The Broken Binding have announced today that their next fantasy subscription series is the Riftwar Saga by Raymond E. Feist. Now, Magician specifically, and kind of the whole Riftwar Saga, but Magician was the first ever fantasy series that I read. And like Magician was the first fantasy book I ever really read, I think. I was in my late teens, and I read tons growing up. But what I read was Star Trek novels. I know that's weird, but I was like obsessively reading Star Trek novels, and I wasn't just obsessively reading them, I was obsessively rereading them. So I had like 20, and I would just like, one of them was like a short series, and I would literally just read it back to back, like over and over and over. I read Dune a couple of times. I did have good books growing up, but I'd always trended towards sci-fi, which is so funny because now I feel like I have to like go out of my way to read sci-fi books. Like normally I would choose to read fantasy over like every other genre. Anyway, currently reading a sci-fi book though, so take that, teenage me. So I have been planning on / thinking about rereading Riftwar for years now. So this is one of the first things I thought about when I started the channel, was that one of the big projects I would like to do would be to reread Raymond E. Feist, because I read like 10 of his books, and there's very few series, because I'm pretty new to reading adult fantasy, despite really enjoying it as a teenager. A lot of the stuff was not out back then, like a lot of the popular stuff. So like Wheel of Time was coming out, but not out. And like Malazan hadn't come out. So like, because a lot of stuff wasn't out, I couldn't read all of those classics when I was super into reading. And then I got super into, I'd always been into comic books, but I got really deep into comic books for a while, and I barely touched a novel for years. Whereas now I've kind of come back to reading, and it's become my main hobby. One of the things that I've been thinking about doing is that the only series that I could do a big reread of would be Magician by Raymond E. Feist, the Riftwar Saga. So I was like, right, I'll do that. That'll be a big project for me, because I don't reread stuff. I've like really not a rereader. I've only read I've only reread 2 books since starting the channel. So, and like, because I'm not a big rereader, it ends up that like, actually, I think I'm going to do this big rereading project and read some Feist books. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read these Raymond E. Feist books. I'm going to read them when they turn up. So I think that this month was February was the first book in the Rook and Rose trilogy. So it's February, March, April will be Rook and Rose. So May, which is actually my birthday month as well, will be when Magician turns up from the Broken Binding, hopefully. And once when it arrives, I will read it, and I'll review the copy, I'll review the experience for Broken Binding and stuff, review the rereading experience. So yeah, I'm really excited about that, because I genuinely love that book, and I have such strong memories of it from growing up, but not actually memories of the story, but memories of like how I felt about reading it, because I'd never read a story like it. Even though I'd read sci-fi series that were like, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 books long, I'd never read anything on the scale of Magician, you know. So really excited to read those again. And yeah, if you want to read along with me, maybe we'll do like a actual proper read-along book club with a live stream and stuff for this one, because it's a series that I'm such a big fan of, and because it'll be like a bit of an anniversary for the channel, I guess, because the books will come out not long before my 3-year anniversary, like a couple of months. So in fact, the final book will probably turn up around time for my 3-year anniversary, which will be August. I'm shocked that I've been doing this for 3 years, lads. I started in August 2023, so mad. Anyway, so yeah, if you'd like to join along with that, I have been tinkering with building out a Discord for the channel, because a lot of my favourite channels have Discords, and I have recently stepped away from basically all book Discords, and just because I realised that I took a little bit of a break and then realised how much time I was spending on there and was like, this is too much. Like, I really like my BookTube friends, and I am sad that I don't speak to them every day like I used to before, but the biggest thing for me is my screen time has gone down by like 2 hours a day, and that is just not healthy. And I think because I don't have any self-control, being in so many bookish communities where if I want to talk about something or distract myself, there's always something to read, I think that's not very good for me personally. So yeah, I think I'm going to launch my own Discord eventually, with the idea that it be a bit more of a mindful and intentional space, at least for me. But I think, I need to take a few weeks away from book Discord, because I was spending like 10 hours a week on Discord, and like it's installed on my desktop, and I was like sitting there and I was looking, it's like, oh my god, the Discord time that was on my phone that was like, oh, you've spent so much time on Discord, wasn't even factoring in the desktop where I sit for work. And Discord is on there, and I'm frequently on Discord while during work and stuff. So that was pretty bad for me. My self-control isn't very good, as you guys know, all the books that I buy. Although actually the book buying ban is going very well. But yeah, so we may end up launching a Discord for the channel, and in the Discord for the channel we will do read-alongs, and I think maybe we'll start with Magician. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'll launch the Discord on my birthday. That'd be exciting. I'm talking about this. I've literally not thought about this in any way, apart from having pre-built out in the background. I've been building a Discord in kind of the way that I want it to be laid out. So yeah, long story short, that might happen or it might not. But we will read Magician by Raymond D. Fice. So if you want to do that, that'd be great. Finally, I would like to talk very slightly about 2 non-bookish related things, which is Daredevil Born Again on Disney Plus, which I'm a huge fan of. Loved it. We'll talk more about it when it's finished, but I love Daredevil. Big fan of the character, big fan of the TV show, and big fan of the comics. So yeah, huge great time on those first 2 episodes, and I cannot wait for the next ones. Also, I am currently playing Monster Hunter Wilds on PC. If anyone's curious about Monster Hunter, I'm not like an expert. I just like, I've played a couple of the games and I do like them. If you would be interested, drop down in the comments below if you'd be interested in a Monster Hunter stream, because I like streaming on YouTube, but I don't want to stream and be like, you guys are here for books, you're not here for games. And even though Monster Hunter is a fantasy, it's not really what you're here for. But yeah, if you'd be interested in a stream where we can just like, you guys can just chat to me and stuff and I'll beat up monsters, then please do shout me out in the comments, and I will see if I can schedule one in soon, like over the weekend or something. And you guys can all see how terrible I am at video games. despite having played them constantly for the last like 20 years. Anyway, we need to finish this episode up. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you're reading, what you're up to this weekend, what you're watching, what you're playing. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, because that would be great. Have a nice weekend. I'll speak to you on Monday.